Welcome to another edition of the OHIO podcast, and this is What's Buggin' Boggsie. I'm your host, Buckeye Boggs. I changed the name to What's Buggin' Boggsie. I just feel that that's more appropriate name given the fact that now that I've entered the age where I'm starting to get gray hair and somewhat, some might say, a little wiser. I'm also getting more irritable, especially kind of when it comes to my Ohio State sports. And this week, I'm going to be discussing my disdain for the athletic director, Gene Smith. Since I was in college myself, Gene Smith has entered the fold on my way out of Ohio State. He came in. And since then, in the 19 years that Gene Smith has been the athletic director of The Ohio State University, we have won exactly one football national championship during those 19 years. Of course, if you remember in 2002, when Jim Tressel was the head coach, Gene Smith had not yet become the athletic director. It was still Anthony Geiger at the time. That being said, there are some things that during Gene Smith's tenure that were good. There was a lot of new facilities built for especially for the Olympic sports, and they are the best in the business. They are the best in the country. The wrestling venue is phenomenal. I think they share that with gymnastics as well. The new track and field stadium, Jesse Owens Memorial Stadium, is awesome. They have a new lacrosse field over there as well on campus. The new tennis facility is absolutely gorgeous, and they are well on their way to building a new ice hockey rink, which is definitely needed, especially since you have the number one women's hockey program in the country currently over in Columbus. All of that being said, those were some of the things that Gene Smith has done well. I think he's overseen the financial side of things pretty well at Ohio State. But as an athletic director, you're going to be known for two things: national championships and coaches. We've won plenty of national championships in a lot of the other sports. And for that, I commend him. However, Gene Smith's inability to win the national championship at the most important sports, being football and men's basketball, is just absolutely staggering and unforgivable, in my opinion. So let's take a look at a few things, and then I want to address the elephant in the room that was his press conference from a week ago when he announced the firing of men's head basketball coach Chris Holtmann, and the exchange he had with press, um, Bucknuts 247 Sports uh, journalist Steve Helwagen, who I respect immensely, and I feel that Gene Smith handled that extremely poorly, and I want to address that as well. But this is what's got me bugging me this week. So during Gene Smith's career, here are some of the things that I think are unforgivable. Number one, how he handled the Jim Tressel situation. Now, everyone outside of Ohio State, especially if you're fans from Ann Arbor, you will look down at what happened with Jim Tressel and you like to poke fun of it. You like to call him a liar and a cheater. And Jim Tressel's anything but that. I first off, let the one without sin cast the first stone. Why are you throwing rocks in a glass house, especially now, given the things that are happening in your athletic department, which will be addressed on the live show this weekend? Why in the world would you look at a man like Jim Tressel, who has done so much good for the state of Ohio, and for every single one of his former players speak glowingly of him, and has done so much good for another university inside the state of Ohio, I might add, at Youngstown State? Why in the world would you look at that man and say anything negative about him? Gene Smith had the perfect opportunity to honor Jim Tressel in a way that was special this past season when Ohio State played Youngstown State. Jim Tressel and his wife were going to be at the game. He was honored during the skull session, got a standing ovation from Buckeye Nation. Buckeye Nation absolutely loves this man. Last time a coach got to dot the I was Earl Bruce, and it was before he passed away, and it was a tremendous honor for Earl Bruce. Why would you not bestow upon Jim Tressel that opportunity when the two universities who he loves the most, who he has given his life to in Youngstown State and Ohio State, are playing for what will probably be the final time in his lifetime? And you had the opportunity, Gene Smith, to go down and say to the band, hey, we're going to give Jim this special honor at this game. You have that control. You have that power. And don't lie and tell anybody that you don't. And you didn't do it. Why? Because of some chip on your shoulder that you hold against Jim Tressel and against the fans? Because of their love for Jim Tressel? Because he fell on the sword for you, Gene Smith? That's bugging me, man. That has been bugging me for well over a decade. And quite frankly, you've never quite addressed it properly, and you've never been truthful with people about it. Gene Smith should have been one of the people who was fired that day, not Jim Tressel. Moving on to 2012, a few years later, you place sanctions on your football program that didn't need to be placed there. You had a 6-6 football team in 2011 that you allowed to go to a bowl game and embarrass themselves. You could have put a bowl ban on that day, on that team, and not placed the sanctions you placed on the 2012 team that went undefeated and would have won a national championship because they would have wiped the field with Notre Dame. That's on you. That could have been your first national championship. Now, thankfully, 2 years later, under Urban Meyer, Ohio State did it in 2014, but that should have been his second national championship with the Buckeyes. And it should have been your second as athletic director. Instead, you just kind of let that one go too, didn't you, Gene? Unforgivable. Thad Matta era. Yes, at the end of the Thad Matta era, given his health, given some of the things that were going on, I understand why the firing of Thad Matta happened. However, Chris Holtmann's hiring is on you. That was a failed hiring. Like Chris Holtmann as a man, think he was a pretty good recruiter, could not develop talent, could not win with his own guys. Couldn't do it. You gave that man an extension, and because of that, he got a buyout of $18 million when you fired him a week and a half ago. Again, you should be paying some of that, man. That should be coming out of your pocket because that was your decision, dude. Unforgivable. So all that being said, I've got to play the clip for all of you. This was last week during the press conference that Gene held in front of the media following the announcement of the firing of Chris Holtmann. He gets up to the podium. It's obvious that he had a good relationship with Chris Holtmann. It was a difficult thing for him to do. I thought he had that he expressed that well. However, when Steve Helwagen asks the question about the attendance issue, and it has been an issue for years, and that whole arena has been an issue, Gene, that you have ignored and you helped to pump more money into that didn't need it. You give one of the worst and selfish answers I have ever heard. And I think you owe this man an apology. Listen in. I have the audio from the question and the response from Steve Helwagen when he asked Gene Smith about the falling attendance at the Schottenstein Center, Value City Arena.
If I could also ask, 19 years you've been here, so many great ups, downs, many great things have happened, great accomplishments. As you bring in Ross and welcome him to this community and everything that goes with it, what are the recommendations that you're going to make to Ross about what can be done to improve the fan experience, the overall environment, and getting people to come back to the Schottenstein Center to watch Ohio State men's basketball. It just died on the vine in the last 3 years. What can you do? What can you recommend to him in your mind that needs to be done?
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, you guys are opinion makers. To say that it died on the vine.
Lowest attendance you've ever had.
Yeah, but it's still 8,000. I mean, you know, we can debate that all we want to, but at the end of the day, this is at 8,000 fans at the last game that we won. So the facts are this. We have to have expectations consistent with reality. There's going to be games throughout the year where you're going to only have 8 or 10. You guys seem to forget that conversation from like 10 years ago. The reality is that's going to happen. It happened during Thad Matta's years. Go back and look at the numbers. There were 8,000 and 10,000 fans periodically throughout the season. However, to your point, there's got to be 6, 7, or 8 games where we're close to that sellout or at the sellout. We haven't had that, to your point. That's really what you're talking about. It hadn't died on the vine. At the end of the day, we need to get better. We need to win. And my advice to Ross is simple.
He got so offended by Helwagen saying that the program had died on the vine. Gene, have you been to the basketball games this year? Have you been there for the last 2 seasons? I know you have. I've seen you on television. I've seen you there in person myself. You've been to you've been to those games during midweek. You've seen where it's less than 6,000 people there in that arena. You could hear a mouse scurry across the court. It's so quiet. Every squeak from every sneaker on that floor because of how quiet it is in there. And that's on you, man. That is on you. And so as you exit as athletic director, yes, there will be people who applaud you for the 19 years you gave. But here's the facts. Here's the truth. And this is why I'm bugged. Number one, I believe you owe Steve Helwagen an apology for how you answered his question. That was a legitimate question that you took offense to because of one little thing in that question that he said that was his feelings and his opinion, and it was not him making a narrative. It wasn't him being an opinion, making opinions for a story. It was him stating a fact about attendance, which has been your problem, and you answer that way, you owe that man an apology. You owe that man an apology. 19 years, you have been the face of Ohio State athletics on a whole. And a lot of people, like I said, will applaud you on the way out. But here's the fact. You're not a Buckeye. You never were a Buckeye. And you're not a Buckeye now. You don't understand. You don't feel it the same while you sit in your high castle collecting millions upon millions of dollars from an athletic program, from a massive fan base that pumps in that money consistently for a winner that you have failed to provide on multiple occasions. And you have the audacity on your way out to be upset with a journalist for asking a simple question about attendance. Gene Smith, adios. Good riddance. I hope Ross Bjork understands this community, understands this fan base, understands this state on a much deeper level. Now I know he wasn't born in Ohio, and I know he wasn't raised in Ohio, but he's got roots in Ohio. He's not a Notre Dame Golden Domer like you, Gene Smith. This guy at least, I think, has the drive, the tenacity, the will, the competitive spirit to want to win. We'll find out real quick because it is apparent to me, Gene, you never had that. And you definitely, even though you say and think you do, you don't. So good riddance. Get out of here. You've been bugging me. This has been bugging me. How you answered and addressed Steve Helwagen has been bugging me for 2 weeks. All the failures I pointed out. And there's even more. Your handling of the Zach Smith situation with Urban Meyer is another one. Oh, but I took some punishment for that as well. You did that because you had to. You should have done that a long time ago. You should have fallen on the sword instead of pushing Jim Tressel on it when that situation arose. Good riddance. Get out of here. I can't wait for you to exit stage left and have Ross Bjork in here. Hopefully, he won't make so many mistakes that you have, Gene Smith. Like, share, do everything. If you disagree, let me know in the comments why you disagree. If you agree, let me know in the comments why you agree. Are you excited for the Ross Bjork athletic director coming in? Are you ready for that era to start like I am? Are you going to miss Gene Smith? If you are, why? Please let me know. Am I missing something? Because I sure don't think I am. We go live every Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern. We will be live tomorrow night. We're going to be talking about all the problems within the athletic department from our rivals up north, as well as a big court case that the NCAA lost that's going to change college athletics as we know it forever moving forward. Don't want to miss that tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern, right here. Make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell. You'll be notified, and you will not miss any time we go live or when a new show like this one drops on your lap every single day. Till next time, go Bucks.